Good evening, football fans everywhere. My name is Nick Colonna. With me,
Ken Logan.
Stephen Logan.
and together we are Sports Break. Harold Roldy will not be joining us tonight. He's had some technical difficulties on his end for the last couple of weeks. Hopefully, we get him next week to do some things. So, just to give you a brief breakdown of what we're going to be covering tonight, really a recap. It's not going to be anything too in depth. I'm guessing that most of you saw the games. We're going to cover our team's games and what we can expect going forward, and then we're going to try to preview week 2 and move on from there. So, without further ado, one of you guys want to start us off?
Steven, go ahead.
So the Ravens played the Broncos. Their corners did not get torched indefinitely like I predicted, which I am very happy about. They kept it really close. Suggs done for the year, which is not good news for us at all. That is going to be a tough one to come back from, but a lot closer game than I had predicted. I'm very happy about that. I'm seeing a lot of positive things, minus everything that Joe Flacco did all game. But other than that, we have a lot of positive things going right now. So hopefully it's just week 1 jitters on the road, get it out of our system now, and then we can come back and start winning some football games later in the season. Interested on seeing who they pick up to make up the slack for Suggs being gone.
I think I did see they signed Babin for a year.
All right, and I'd heard a lot of rumors. Harrison was being talked about. I believe Freeney was being talked about. Just a veteran guy to throw in the locker room really is what we were looking for. So,
Yeah. But yeah, I think the Ravens will be fine. They got a lot of talent. It's got a, like I said, week 1. Never know what you're going to get. Oh.
Yeah, also along with week 1, that's the first week that the players see different packages. You know, you got defensive coaches actually going and implementing strategy into it. You didn't really get to see any of that in preseason. So week 1 is really the say all, tell all kind of thing. And you see, like you said, you get all those jitters out. I mean, look how many quarterbacks already have interceptions. I'm pretty sure all but maybe 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken, are throwing ball to the other team. So it was a rough week for most, a close week for most. We already talked about how the Jets and the Browns game wouldn't be one to watch, and that definitely wasn't one you'd want to sit around for too long. But the game I wanted to talk about was the Jaguars. It was a disappointing loss. We started off, I felt like we started off really slow. We seen, on offense at least, we seen a lot of last year's Jacksonville. We had receivers just dropping the balls. Blake Bortles threw 2 interceptions, one which is, it was just a terrible pass on him, ended up being a pick 6, and the other one ended up being one of those weird just tip balls, and the other defender just happened to be in the right place at the right time kind of moments. He went 22 of 40, which is 55% for 183 yards. Only had 1 touchdown on the game. Wasn't very impressed. Who I was impressed with, though, was T.J. Yeldon. And I've been saying this since preseason. I think this dude is going to be a star in the league. He's very, very quick. He's smart. He's not going to go in there and try to truck defenders because he is a smaller back. So he'll get what he needs to get, and then he'll make the plays that he needs to play, and then he'll either go down or he'll run out of bounds, which I think is a good thing because we don't need him hurt. So I expect a lot from T.J. Yeldon this year. He had 12 attempts for 51 yards. That puts about a 4.3 average. That's right on there at top of the line back status when you're talking about coming in as a rookie. So I think he's going to have big things this year. Somebody I wasn't too impressed with, which I think it's just because he had a lot of pressure on him coming in, was Jason Myers, our new kicker. He missed a field goal. Wide right. He also missed an extra point. Uncontested extra point, I should say. So when you start adding all those factors in, the receivers dropping the balls and your kicker missing, because there's 4 points right there that could have undoubtedly changed the aspect of the game. It may not necessarily have won, but we would at least been tied going into halftime. So now that when you're talking about coming into the second half, when you're losing because of a missed field goal or a missed extra point going into halftime, now the coaches have different strategies having to come out at the gate and get players mentally prepared. But I'm excited to see next week. It'll be our last week at home for another 4 weeks really. We have a 3 road game stretch coming up after Miami this week, so I'll be excited to see how we kind of play for our last home game for a while. And defense did outstanding, by the way.
And
to their horn.
Yeah, and it's with the Jaguars. They're young. They really are. They're still building, so things can only go up from here. Bortles is going to do great things. With Yeldon helping take away some of that pressure, I think the Jaguars will be all right. But now, if we move on to my boys, I had a little better luck watching, even though the first half I didn't think it was that way.
Little bit
So
of the first half.
Yeah. So the Chargers took on the Lions at home, and a lot of the things that we all talked about for the game last week started to show itself. Losing Sue and Fairley, you could kind of see that the physicality of the team wasn't there. Haloti Ngata was pretty much shut down for most of the game, and I think it's because they had a lot of double teams going with the offensive line taking them on. Jason Verrett and Brandon Flowers shut down Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate, and it was beautiful to watch. It really was. That doesn't mean they didn't have any plays coming out. You definitely had Amir Abdullah, showing off his skills, why the Lions picked him and drafted him. And the first half, the Rivers had thrown 2 picks. He was really efficient with the ball, but threw 2 picks, and the score was 21-3. The Chargers started coming back, came out of the half, started coming back, and I did want to do a screen share and share with you guys a nice little video of a play that just made me smile and really changed the game afterwards. I don't know if you'll hear the sound, but this is...
Very nice.
And this right here, Melvin Ingram coming off the edge, getting the pressure.
So quick.
It was right off the line, timed it perfectly. And then the rookie, Kyle Emanuel, came up with the interception. And Kyle Emanuel's a 5th-round pick this year, and he was the replacement starter for Jerry Atauchu this week. So that just goes to show you the depth that the Chargers have, which is something that, as a fan, I have not been able to say for many years. But if you go up and down this roster, the 53-man roster, they have depth everywhere. Telesco, McCoy have done a great job over the last 3 years of really building a good roster, building a good team, very competitive team, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do. The final score ended up being, I think, 33-21. The Phillip Rivers was 37 out of 42, something like that, something ridiculous, and threw for over 400 yards, a couple touchdowns, couple picks. Melvin Gordon looked great on one of his plays. It did get called back because he touched the ground, but Keenan Allen had a field day, set a record, Chargers record, or tied with 15 catches, I think 168 yards. He didn't get any touchdowns, though. Ladarius Green had a touchdown. Stevie Johnson had a touchdown. There's so many weapons on this team, and I think just throughout time, they're just going to keep continuing to get better and better. So, as a Chargers fan, I was pretty pleased over the weekend. I really enjoyed the game, so it was good stuff.
I just pulled up the stats real quick where I talked about the week 1 touchdown to interception ratio. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3. There are only 6 starting quarterbacks that have not thrown an interception this year.
Whew.
There are 1, 2, three quarterbacks: Teddy Bridgewater, Peyton Manning before today's game. This is Week 1 stats, and Joe Flacco that had a negative touchdown to interception ratio, which is a little surprising for Peyton Manning. But we'll get into that a little later as we start to recap tonight's game, which, for you that don't know, it is the Broncos versus Kansas City, and that game is
They both
right now.
lose.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
It'd be great for me if both teams would just lose somehow. It'd be fantastic.
And then the rest of the NFL needs to lose for my Jaguars to make it to the playoffs.
Dang. Oh, man.
But we just wanted to share that little stat. So that was pretty much a recap for Week 1. We will now move into Week 2. Just do a little prediction, do the best we can, just from what we know and what we've seen through Week 1, and just see who we think is going to win each game. I guess we could start with, you got the schedule for Week 2, Steven? Just kind of go down the line.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, today I had the Chiefs winning this game. Mainly because I don't like what Peyton is doing or was doing, but he's starting to put it together right now because he's Peyton Manning. I mean, come on. But the Chiefs, I really like that defense. I like Andy Reid. I like the way he has groomed Alex Smith to be smarter with the ball, the short passes and everything. Use Jamal Charles a lot. Travis Kelce is a weapon coming, doing big things. So I had the Chiefs going into this night, but it's still, I think it's tie game right now.
Yeah, it's 17-17 right now at the end of the third.
Yeah. So, what about you guys? Who did you guys have coming into this game? If you could be as honest as possible.
I had Denver, and I could do a screen share. I did, because I do the pigskin pick'ems, so mine's already locked in. But I had Denver just because, you are talking about Peyton Manning. He might have had a bad Week 1, but you don't usually see him string together 2 bad weeks in a row, which he started to at the beginning of the game here in the first half. He wasn't doing so hot, but right before halftime, they was losing. Kansas City was up 14-0, with just a little bit of time going into the halftime, and Denver came back and Peyton did his thing, and they ended up tying it up to go 14-14 into halftime. So I had Denver. I hope Denver pulls it out, but I also hope Kansas City, just as far as fantasy goes, because I do have Kelce on my fantasy roster. But that would be the only reason I'd want Kansas City to win. But I did have Broncos going this week.
I was the same way. I had the Broncos winning, but it's because Peyton Manning is very good at not losing back-to-back games. Over his career, all the way back to college, is one thing he did very well. He just does not lose games back-to-back. So Chiefs, I still think they're limited offensively. They're getting better and better. They're a running team first, I believe, and I think that takes 2 to 3 weeks to actually get going. And them coming off a disappointing game and a disappointing loss, them being the Broncos, I just did not see them losing a second game, especially this being their first inter-division game where you're trying to start that season off on the right foot and get a win in the division to kind of help step you up into the playoff leads for your respected division.
Absolutely. So it's definitely a game. Division games definitely showing tied up, both teams battling. So we'll see as our Sports Break broadcast goes on. We'll definitely keep in tune with that. But by the time you guys see this video, the game will be long over. So, but moving on.
We'll be live. We'll be the new sports sensation on TV. So.
But if we move on to Sunday, we have a pretty good slate of games. There's a couple in there that I'm really looking forward to. How do we start this Sunday off?
This Sunday starts Texans at the Panthers. I'm going to take the Panthers. They're the home team. The Texans are still the Texans. I'm really still not really sure what happened to them to where they went from like one of the best teams in the league to just not anymore. Panthers, I think, are getting better every single year with Cam Newton. I was not a big fan of him in college, being I did not like Auburn, but he has turned out to be quite a good quarterback, and as far as mobile quarterbacks go, he's easily one of my favorite, with the exception of probably Russell Wilson. He's big, he's strong, he makes plays, he avoids sacks. He doesn't make a lot of stupid mistakes. Occasionally, he can be immature, but I like the Panthers' defense. They got the best linebacker in football right now, in Luke Kuechly. They're at home, coming off a close game where I think they probably thought they should have won their last game a little more impressively than they did. So,
what are you trying to say?
good teams win against bad teams. But I think the Panthers. I think they get the win. They start off 2-0. I like their offensive skill set and the weapons they have.
I just love the heartbreak that you just gave your brother when you said that. Like, you can just see it on his face, like, oh, no.
It's what honesty does.
Oh man. The brutal.
Hey, wait till week 10, and we will see who's crying at the end of that week.
Oh, here we go.
I'm going to have to agree with Steven on this one. I got Panthers as well. They just came off of a win, and it's always good bringing stamina into the next week when you're able to do that. You're talking about Houston. They're not able to do that. They lost last week. The defense for Houston is not very proactive. They seem really hesitant this year. They don't make really good decisions. They're not learning quick from the mistakes. Looking at last week's game, and like you had mentioned, with lost my train of thought there real quick. With Cam Newton, we mentioned it last week. He's really slick. He breaks tackles like it's cool, and I think you're going to see a lot of frustration for Houston in their defense when he's constantly making some kind of miracle play that he does. And to be honest, I think they have one of the top defenses in the league right now, talking about Carolina. And it's going to be really hard for Houston to combat that, especially when Houston is on the road. So I got Panthers on this one. I think it'll still be a pretty good game, though.
Bill O'Brien, you're done after one half. We're just getting a week quarterback situation, and this team going, I think they're hungry. They probably thought they should have won the game a lot, done a lot better. Credit to the Jaguars for actually, putting up a little fight, getting a little fight in there. Young team doing their defense is fantastic. Bond, I think Houston should keep it a lot closer. They shouldn't be as dominant or dominated. That will take. This is an interesting game. 49ers at Steelers.
You're going to kick that one off, Nick? I think we may be experiencing a little bit more technical difficulties on your end.
Okay. I think I know what to do. You guys recap or go ahead and preview the game.
All right, Steven, if you want to go ahead and kick it off.
I think this is going to be a game where I like the 49ers, but I think a lot of their success last week was from playing a team that might not be as good as what the Steelers are. Adrian Peterson, I thought he would be a whole lot better coming back than what he turned out to be last week. believe he ended right at 10 carries for 31 yards, which, I mean, if you're a rookie back, that's not bad, but when you're the back that won the MVP of the NFL not 3 years ago, it's not necessarily the stat line you're looking for. The Steelers played a much better team on the road in the Patriots, as much as it pains me to say that. So I think coming back home, I like the Steelers more than I like the San Francisco 49ers. I think Steelers come in a little more hungry. I think the 49ers come in feeling a little bit better about themselves than what they might need to, especially coming in with a new coach this year. So I'm gonna have the Steelers winning this one at home.
100% agree with you, sir. Steelers definitely. I think it was a great game Thursday night. Way to kick off the season. The Steelers.
We're losing you again, Nick. We do apologize. Seems like we are having some technical difficulties. Are you hearing anything on your end, Steven?
I am not.
I'll go ahead and do mine. I'm going to have to disagree with you. I do have Pittsburgh losing this game. I think it'll be a really close game, one of those ones down to the wire. But I think a lot of last week's game had to do with the Steelers' offensive coordinator. Todd Haley, he did do a lot of bad play calling last week. And I think they're frustrated from last week. You know, they seem to blame, and we all heard the headset problems. But that's just something you got to kind of adapt and overcome. I would like to see them come out and win this week, but I do feel as if San Francisco is going to have an outstanding week again this week, and to try to keep their record up to 2-0.
We will go ahead then and move on. Oh, is he back?
I'm back.
The bearded wonder has returned.
The beard has returned. I apologize, everybody, for that. I had some technical difficulties again, but I think I have it all fixed on my end now. Should have zero issues going forward.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead and guess it was a sweep, Steelers over the 49ers?
Incorrect. My brother, 49ers, says they're going to win it.
Yeah, I got San Francisco on this one.
Okay. All right, sir. I see you, Mr. Logan, doing your thing.
I think it's only going to be a 3-point spread there. It's going to be a really close game.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say that Steelers are probably going to win by 2 scores. Probably by 10. And
by 10? Oh.
I think at least.
Okay.
At least. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced by the 49ers. 49ers, convince me. Show me more. Because I don't know. The thing that worries me is I don't know if the 49ers were that good or the Vikings were that bad.
Yeah.
But we'll get more into that later. But hey, you never know. The 49ers, they could definitely do something. So
and it's hard to tell because you're looking at something that's so small in comparison. We've only had 1 week to be able to analyze. So if you're trying to study anything, look at anything, you can't even go back to last year because the off season has brought about so many changes, and now you're looking at changing the rules. You no longer kicking the extra point from the 3-yard line. Now you're talking about kicking it back from what they move it back to the
It's like a 32-yard attempt now or something like that.
Which they got the opportunity to go for 2 points and keep it at the original 3-yard line, but also you get the chance for the defense to score as well. So it's hard to say what's going to happen this year. I think once we get into the first 3 weeks, you'll be able to have a bigger package to kind of judge off of, see what teams are doing and how they're reacting, because that's going to be the biggest thing this year is how teams react to their past week or their past plays. So it'll be interesting to see.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And that's what makes NFL great. Every year, there's always, you got the top tier teams at the end, and then you got the low tier. And somehow, every single year, some couple of top tiers drop and a couple of low tiers jump. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens this year.
You'll see my Jaguars as one of those low tiers jumping.
I mean, they might be jumping to a first round or a number 1 draft pick. But no, like I said, I've said this many times. I like the Jaguars. I like the direction they're going. I really, really like Dante Fowler coming out of college, and I think once he's healthy,
what he does next year. I'm really looking forward to see what he's doing next year.
And the Jaguars end up having 2 first-round picks essentially coming on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
So if they can stay competitive this year, keep progressing, getting better, get Bortles to mature. It should be good, but I don't think this is a year they're going to do too much. I think there's too much talent around that division right now.
If we could go, 8-8 somewhere around there, I'd be satisfied. Something I'd like to see, Luke Joeckel, and just kind of going back, Luke Joeckel. I think he's kind of a bust, and the sad part is he is our best left tackle we have. He got hurt with a sprained ankle last week. He went out, and Bortles, the left-hand side or the left side, just kind of collapsed almost every single play. Not saying that Luke Joeckel's that great. It just, I think once we can give him that, and once you start getting the good thing about last week is 95% of their errors was correctable, and that's talking about receivers dropping balls that was right in their chest. You had a couple overthrows by Blake. I don't want to get into it too much, but we was talking about Jacksonville against. I got to defend my boys. But we'll go ahead and move on. Go back to week 2, and we have the Detroit Lions versus the Vikings. What you got, Nick?
This game, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have picked the Vikings, and it probably wouldn't have been close. After a week of action, again, like you're saying, it's tough to say, it's tough to know, but I really think that the Lions are they're going to be a lot more hungry after their loss than the Vikings will after theirs. I think the Lions still feel like they had that game. You're up 21-3 at the half, and you let it slip. You give up 30 points unanswered at one point, and that's unacceptable. Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate got shut down. I don't think the Vikings corners are near as good as Jason Verrett and Brandon Flowers, so I think you're going to see a response from them. Eric Ebron is still going to be tearing up the middle of the field. The big thing I'm looking at right now, or I don't know if it's a lingering injury, but Stafford's arm apparently went numb after that play I showed earlier, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much that's going to affect him. But at the same time, you go to the Viking side, I'm still a huge Teddy Bridgewater fan, but he did not look that good against the Niners. Divisional games like this, Vikings-Lions, anytime you have divisional games, it's always a really close, really fun game for the most part. So for now, I definitely think the Lions overall better team, so I'm going to go Lions.
I'll keep mine short and sweet. I agree with everything you said. I got Detroit on this one. I would like to see AP come out and do a little bit more than what he did last week. And that could really change the course of the way they play the game. Just because Minnesota is one of those teams that they like to run the ball, and they use that against the teams. You get AP running the game, so now they got to bring the defenders in, which sets you up for the long game, and you use those to get big plays. And once you get those big plays, you kind of put the defense on their knees and you keep them there. So when you keep a team, which what happened last week with Minnesota, you keep them one-dimensional, and especially a team that's used to being 2 or 3 dimensional, it's going to hurt him a lot. So we'll see how he plays this week. If AP comes and does what he normally does to Minnesota, if they're able to shut him down, I think Detroit's going to keep him up.
I think the off season was a little bit in Adrian Peterson's head. I think that's part of the reason he got 3 yards to carry last week. It doesn't help opening on the road either. I do not see them being that much better going back home. I do agree that the Lions definitely feel like they let a game go. They did not get beat. They did not lose a game. They allowed themselves to lose a game. And teams usually come back pretty fired up from stuff like that, especially at this level of football. So I think if this is one the Lions should probably win. I think they played a better team last week and were able to keep it close and really dominate in the first half. So I think a little less firepower on the Vikings than there are the Chargers. So I don't see them blowing another lead like they did last week. I think this week they'll go get their lead at halftime and actually keep it this time.
Good news for Peyton Manning. He just eclipsed his 70,000th passing yard. Round of applause for Peyton Manning.
Respect Peyton. All right. One thing, growing up and watching Peyton since he came into the league, he's always been one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. He's always been a fun guy. I hated it when he chose the Broncos over the 49ers and the Titans, but nothing but respect for the man, the sheriff. He's a beast, and shattering records. He's going to be all over the record book, and he is. So props to him.
And just an update, it is still 17-17. There's 7:56 left in the fourth. Kansas City has the ball, 3rd and 10 on the Denver 17. We will move to Cardinals and Bears. Nick, what you got?
Oh, boy, Cardinals and Bears. So I watched the Bears and Packers game last week, and the couple bright spots the Bears have were Matt Forte. I like Kyle Fuller on the defensive side. But that's the only thing that really sticks out in my head. You know, Jay Cutler still did Jay Cutler things. And you go to the Cardinals, having Palmer back, they look like the team they were supposed to be last year.
Oh, yeah.
They look, with Carson Palmer. Andre Ellington did go down, but that's not going to slow the Cardinals down at all. They have too many weapons. The receiving core is fantastic. Their defense is great.
We may be experiencing some more technical difficulties there.
Technology never wants to work with you.
Never.
Okay.
Hey, Nick.
Yo.
Do you have a second computer? I think it may be because you're trying to stream yourself and stream from or upload to online. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So if you can pull Sports Break up on another computer and pull yours up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think that may be the issue.
That you're.
Because it does take a lot of bandwidth to try to do all those at the same exact time.